Welcome, Mr. Bonner. It's so good to have you here with us today. And I'm so excited to be talking about Tip of the Arrow.
Well, thank you, Ms. Hogan. I'm so happy you've chased me down and we can have this conversation. And this book and SNCC are two matters that are very important to me.
Yeah, well, I'm really excited to learn a little bit about what made you decide to turn, this is a very significant scholarly contribution and it takes a lot of work and investment on your part. So tell me a little bit, you've had such a long and illustrious career. What made you decide that it was time to go ahead and put this book together?
What motivated me to write this book is the fact that the children of the movement, the 14, 15, 16, as I was at the time, through high school, 18-year-olds, they were indeed the tip of the arrow. They were the vanguard. They were the first to go to jail, the first to go out into Carter's drugstore and get arrested and beat up with blood gushing on September 16th. Yesterday, in fact, was the very first sit-in demonstration we had in Selma at Carter's drugstore as a protest to the killing of the 4 girls in Birmingham. Many books have been written about Selma. I've traveled around the world, from Europe to Africa to Scandinavia. Everyone knows about Selma. And they know about Selma because of the student nonviolent movement. However, the stories of the young people had not been told. Being one of those students, I was the first of 2 students that Reverend Bernard Lafayette contacted when he came to Selma. And also being a trial lawyer, as a trial lawyer, I tell stories. I felt compelled to tell the stories of the students, the real true warrior foot soldiers who led the movement. And so I then spent from 2005, when I tracked down then the retired Sheriff Jim Clark and obtained an interview from him. The complete interview is contained in the book. And from 2015 for the next 2005 rather, for the next 10 years, I just sought to trace people down and conduct interviews. And then I spent another 5 to 7 years writing the book. And so that's why I wrote it, to make sure that history record the stories of the people who were actually there, the stories of the people who literally made the movement move.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate that work, because as somebody who is an educator and has worked a lot with K through 12 teachers, there are so few examples in those textbooks of young people changing the world. And this is something that is so important to getting that information in textbooks. So young children, 4th graders, 8th graders, 10th graders can really see themselves in textbooks. So I just want to say thank you, because it's just really exciting to see. But what I would also like to ask you is, can you talk a little bit about when you're doing this magnificent piece of scholarship, what are the things that surprise you? Because after all, as you've said, this has been something you've lived in the most intense ways from a very young age, and then have spent a very long time talking about with audiences around the world. So I'm curious about when you kind of dug into the interviews and the research, what surprised you?
Well, what surprised me was the accomplishments. Many of these young students who were out there going to jail with us from September 16th, 1963, all the way through the end of August, following the passage of the 1965 Voters' Rights Act. That 3-year period, many of those students had done phenomenal things. PhDs, in the case of, say, Viola Johnson Douglas, lawyer Roberta Tate. We have several doctors. People had gone on to do things, and they credited the movement with motivating them to the accomplishments that they achieved, including myself. I would never have become a lawyer had it not been for SNCC. I was studying to become a barber. And then I met people like Cortland Cox and Reverend Bernard Lafayette, and people like Stu House and these college students, Stokely Carmichael, and they were reading various books like this, Kwame Nkrumah and Julius Nyerere, and I thought, wow, these are intellectuals, these, I think I want to talk like them one of these days. So I stopped being a bomber and started going to college. And so that is what really surprised me, is that social activism has a way of motivating young people, not only to bring about social change, but it motivates them to become great citizens and to accomplish great things as human beings. And so that was really a great motivating factor and a great surprise.
Thank you, because that's such a beautiful thing that comes through in the book, is people's sense of possibility, right? How much the freedom movement opens people's sense of possibility. So I guess in this era that we're in, where there's so much extreme partisanship and there's so many crises on the horizon, I feel like this work is very powerful and speaks to that moment in important ways. So if you were speaking to young people today, what would you want them to take most forcefully from the book itself?
I would want them to take the message of nonviolence as a main mechanism, a main vehicle for bringing about social change. It will not only bring about social change for the greater society, but it will be transformative for the individual. We know that because that book is a testament to the kind of transformation we've seen in kids like me who grew up in the cotton fields. We had no hope. We didn't have any idea that we would have some kind of illustrious future, a career. I had no idea I would become a lawyer. There was only one lawyer in Selma who, at the time, J.L. Chestnut, who was a raging alcoholic, but became sober and became one of the most powerful and respected, brilliant lawyers, civil rights lawyers in America. The point is that we were all literally kids from the cotton fields. We just knew that when they killed the 4 girls in Birmingham on September 15th, Sunday, September 15th, 1963, that we were ready to lead, because Reverend Bernard Lafayette and his then wife, Collier Lafayette, had trained us from March up until September to lead ourselves. Their message and SNCC message was that children will become the leaders. They have to lead the movement. They have to lead themselves. The SNCC workers, the college students were there to facilitate leadership. And so on September 16th, 1963, yesterday, neither Bernard nor his wife, Collier, were in Selma. They were in Birmingham because of the bombing. And so the students, 77 of us, decided we had to take action. We had trained in nonviolence. We had practiced how to go limp, how to protect ourselves. We had committees set up. If we were to go to jail, we had people to stay out, to contact the SNCC office in Atlanta. We had an entire organization, which is reflected in the book. And so we did that. We went out and went to a Carter's drugstore. Our leader at the time was a young man named Willie C. Robinson. He tried to get a hamburger and was hit in the head. Blood gushed everywhere, and 12 students were arrested. We went back to the church and decided by consensus what we should do, whether we should go back to school or go back into the street. And we decided to go back in the streets, and we did that again and again and again until we got the 1964 Civil Rights Act passed, and also we got the 1965 Voters' Rights Act passed that ultimately led to other civil rights laws, such as the 1968 Fair Housing Act. And it was a tremendous accomplishment. And that's what young people can do. We did it nonviolently. We didn't throw rocks. We didn't burn buildings. We didn't shoot, loot. Indeed, we were just the humble victims demanding our rights under the Constitution as everyone else. And we obtained that.
Wow, that is such a powerful and inspiring message. So I want to encourage everybody to go ahead and get this fantastic book. Thank you so much, Mr. Bonner, for talking with us today. And I really appreciate your inspiration for young people. And I'm so looking forward to sharing this with many others as a teacher going forward.
Thank you so much for having me and for speaking with me and raising those very important questions, okay?
Thanks, Mr. Bonner.
Thank you, Ms. Hogan. Have a great day.
You too.